And as usual, take a good seat. You're probably already in it. And check in with the mind, body, spirit. So I was working this weekend with the theme of the three gunas. I love that word, Gunas, but it's qualities, characteristics of life. And there's tamas, not Tom, the Tommy tank or train, but Tamas, tamas. And that's there's two qualities, sort of a one we would reach for and one we wouldn't, of the tamas, which is it can be strong and stable and steady, or it can be total couch potato, which I've been finding myself dropping into more than I want. It's just kind of an inertia of not being able to move, a sort of a very dense and slow and cold kind of, if not temperature wise, at least activity wise. And then the one part of that is being still and quiet and easeful. So think of it as a continuum. And then at the other end of the continuum is rajas. And that's fiery, intense. So it can be either to the extreme of just crazy, wild, with frenetic, with activity. I haven't been blessed with that yet for a while, but there's that. Yeah, right. Or there's the active and engaging, and it's probably not from the extreme, a little down from the extreme, the one where you feel like I might get something done today, or I'm going to go take a walk. Or with the weather and the heat, that just really seems to put a big blanket on me, of a big tamas blanket. Where we come to the middle is called sattva, or you can be sattvic, but sattva is that place in the middle where you're balancing the two. You're not too slow, you're not too fast. It's that kind of, it's the hare and the tortoise, and then you're coming to the midline. So I like to check in with, where am I on my continuum today? And am I more towards the tamas, the slow side, or am I more towards the sattvic side, the rajas side? Or am I sort of dead in the middle? I've been more towards the tamas side lately for the last couple of weeks, and it may be the heat. Who knows what it is? We have no idea what's going on with us, but at any rate, you breathe into that, sit with that, be okay with that. What doesn't make my really sluggish tamas side any better is to get to shame myself, to talk about how I should on myself. I should do this, I should do that. To accept it, breathe with it, move around it. If you're sweetly in the middle, that's wonderful. I just haven't been there for a little while. And set your intention for your practice. And breathe. Draw your palms together in front of the heart. We'll do an internal Om to ourselves. Vibrating with the universe. And release. Come to standing. I want to adjust this just a bit because I want to do a little bit on that wall as well. You have a wall near you, Allison?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. First, let's work out the feet with the ball, tennis ball, spiky ball, lacrosse ball, ow, and start to press at the base of each toe. And this is what, if I'm feeling way too tamas, way too sluggish for anybody's good, including my own, often if I just go work out my feet for a few moments, not even a whole long time as we do it, it's better than a cup of coffee. Just like, doesn't make me jittery, it actually wakes me up. And there's a physiological reason for that, because on the bottom of our feet, mostly, we talk about plantar fasciitis, and it's the fascia are very thick and strong on the bottom of the feet. That's that nerve-rich kind of covering it. think of it as kind of spider webby sometimes, but it can get stuck if we don't use our feet well. So keep rolling, you know the drill. Just work them, work it your favorite way until you feel like that's, oh, feels much better. Start with the other side. Pressing and rolling and just listening to the feet. But that fascial chain, it starts, the back fascial chain starts at on the bottom of the feet and comes all the way up the back to the back of the skull, which is why when we lay over the two balls right at the base of the skull, it feels so good, because it's also helping to remove that tension, that tightness. And when we rub out the feet, we notice that the whole leg feels different. So you are affecting the whole chain. That's why they call it a chain, moving up the line. All right, if you finish that side, breathe, just stand. Start with a morning back bend, stretch up. Strong legs, cactus the hands, pull down, pull the elbows back, but the bottom ribs in, and curl back, shoulder blades on the back. And just notice, this is our pre-test. We're just looking at, oh, what's not moving right now? And release. Take one of your balls, spiky ball or the lacrosse or tennis ball, and work the armpit chest. So that will help with the back and the upper back and the shoulders, actually. So if we start to press, or you can just dig in with the fingers, I find that's effective as well. But take one side and you start right up here, right where the armpit kind of stops, meets the shoulders. So place right in between there, right under the collarbone. Ow. Towards the sternum. Once you don't get on the sternum, but just on one side of it. And then roll straight across. You're fully above the breast. You're not below this crease of where your armpit stops, comes up. And then just work all the way around and find a spot, there might be multiples, that's pretty intense, pretty tender, and work that one. Oh, yeah. And release. That whole shoulder just seems to drop. Side two, press, work. Mine tends to be over near the armpit. Some days it's a little closer or up close to the collarbone, but there's a little pectoral minor that digs down in here that can get really tight. If it gets really tight, it rubs across the first, second, and third rib and can cause other problems in the shoulder, oddly enough. And release. But just with that, if you put the ball down, take another morning back bend and see what's changed. So the legs are strong, press through the four corners of the feet, inner thighs back, tailbone down. And I find, you find a little more opening? I find a lot more, yeah. Oh, it feels good. And all right, release. Take the ball, go to the wall. Starting to do Dr. Seuss. And what we'll do is you'll take the ball and you'll roll up one side, and particularly, get a little closer, you'll roll up one side, and when the scapula is right here, the bottom tip of my shoulder blade, so you'll dig in kind of on one side of that and on the other side of that, then we'll go up here. So pick a side, back up to a wall, and starting at the back waist, you have to walk your feet pretty far out the wall. Your bum can be on the wall, but the feet you're kind of like doing a bunch of little chair sits. And begin to work up the muscles on either side of the spine. So start with one side, work all the way up. Ow. And I have to stop, move it up a little bit. And so you just do about 4 or 5 passes on each side with the breath. Get up towards, right where the little shoulder blade comes away from the spine slightly, where it points down. Just dig right in there. That can be very tight. and then roll it just above the scapula, the shoulder blade. The more you walk the feet away from the wall and push your body into the ball, that will be your volume control for how much work you want to do. And then start to work up on the shoulder. This is where you have to do a little limbo move to get right at the top, right at the top of the shoulder. All wants to escape. Oh, and even turning to the side. So that is the top of the trapezius, and it goes, trapezius is huge. It goes all the way up into the occipital area, and it spreads across. It's kind of triangular, and then it's the tendons begin to reach all the way down to the tailbone, so it's huge. Stop, pause once you've gotten all the way up, and oh, that side feels so good. Then start at the back waist on the other side, and begin your multiple knee bends here. Just be sure that when you're bending your knees, I'll come over here, that your feet are not behind you and you're bending this way, that you're back here, and it's more like you're in a chair. You'll also push more weight onto the ball, which will cause you to pay attention. Oh. And keep working it up towards the shoulder blade. Oh. So what I like about, we've done this on the floor with the double balls, but what I like about this on the wall is my legs start to have to work a bit. Dig right in at the bottom inner edge of the shoulder blade, right next to the spine, but not on it. And then roll it up and begin to gyrate to the side. And get the top of the trapezius, holy moly, where the sternocleidomastoid comes down. It's that big muscle on the side of the neck. Oh, could do that about 30 minutes. And then release. Oh. Try another morning back bend. So steady, rise up, legs are strong, curl back and see if there's a little more opening. Oh, way. And release, interlace the hands behind the back. And open, lift the arms. And lower them. Inhale, lift your arms and lower. And notice what happens, what tends to happen. I was already doing it. The bottom ribs tend to pop out and the chin tends to drop too far back. So while you're lifting the head, you're not dropping it back, keeping the back of the neck long. As you lift the arms and lower, lift and lower. All right, and shake off. You back up to the wall. If you have enough room, you can spread the arms out or they can be by your side. But as you back up to the wall, your heels are a little bit away from the wall. We do have this trunk back here. So it's not so much that it's far forward or way, way back to the wall, but just a few inches away from the wall, you'll figure it out. So the bum is on the wall. Soften the knees, feet are parallel, inner thighs move back to the wall. Tailbone lengthens to lengthen the legs. Then shrug the shoulders a bit. Draw the head of the arm bones back to where they touch the wall. Now your back waist is curving at least energetically away from the wall as the belly button's moving back to the spine. Then the center back of the head is moving towards the wall. Now, if you move it towards the wall and you have to lift up, then you just keep working the chin back level. So you're neither tucking nor lifting. It's the top and bottom of the ears are moving back at the same rate. It might go back to the wall, it may not, but that's the direction it's heading. And just get this sense of alignment. See if it can feel normal. Nice. Then turn to the wall, pick a side, we only got two, so we'll get to both of them. You're standing fairly close to the wall. You might even be right up to it. The hip can touch the wall. Your ribs may or may not touch the wall. With the arm up at 12 o'clock, the outer armpit, the tricep area and the outer armpit may or may not touch the wall. And it just depends on how tight we are and also part of our proportions. Bottom ribs want to pop out here, pull them in and down, and the head's level, moving towards the back body. As you stretch the arm up, reach down through both feet, and just reach it up. With your outside hand on your inside ribs, that will remind you to pull the ribs away from the wall towards the middle of the room. Walk your fingertips back towards 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock, whichever way. You're looking at me, it probably looks like 11. But back behind you, just a few inches. And notice the bottom ribs want to pop, lift and pop. Keep pulling them back and down and out to the center of the room. And breathe here. If you need to step away from the wall a little bit to do this, that's fine. Take the arm back just a couple of more inches. Oh, and keep pulling. This is where I'm pulling my hip all the way away from the wall so I can start to pull the ribs back at least a center. They're not going to the center of the room, but they're facing the wall you're facing, your head is facing. Oh, if you can go back another 1/4 of an inch, pull from the fingers all the way into the shoulder socket and release, shake off. Put that arm back in the socket. Let's try a morning back bend just with this one and see, it'll feel quite different because we're two-sided already. Pull down, pull back. Ah, I feel a huge difference with how much I can get hug the shoulder blade on the back on that side. So change side. So Allison, this is something you can do really easily. Don't need any special equipment, special clothes. Of course, you and I probably both live in yoga clothes, but or the like, right? So for the first one, you hug, if you can get the hip and part of the outer armpit on the wall, the tricep kind of feels nice for the straight up one, and pull the ribs down. Center back of the head, top and bottom of the ears moving back evenly. Ah. And just pause a minute and notice this. What this will do is stretch the tricep. Tricep is the muscle right behind here, or as somebody in class said, they call it the bingo muscle. It's the one that goes wobble, wobble, wobble after a certain age. At any rate, we often think about strengthening it, but stretching it is, for me, when I first started thinking about that, it's like, oh yeah, really work to stretch. And one way you can really get it is to inner rotate the upper arm. So your underarm here, the one that doesn't see sun very often unless you open, pull it towards your cheek. Then you counter rotate the upper arm down. That gives you a big stretch. Breathe, and you can step away, you can kind of move the hips away from the wall as you need to, as you walk the hand back away from 12 o'clock, just a few inches. And again, the whole front body then wants to turn to the wall. Your hand is pulling the inner ribs away from the wall. And from the fingertips, pull down into the shoulder socket. Walk the hands back. Oh. And notice, as soon as I do that, I tend to hike the ribs. See if you can stabilize them more by pushing down in the outside leg. Oh. Walk them back. I'm starting to lose feeling in that shoulder. That's the super tight one. Breathe. Cutting the blood supply off and release. All right. One more morning back bend. Whoa. Oh, way more curl back. Pull the shoulder blades, hug them onto the back and release. So on that side, I don't know, I'm so much tighter on the left. This is my dominant side, but I'm so much tighter on this side. And when I was doing that, I felt more blood constriction. As we're pulling it back, it's kind of like a bind. But then when I pulled it off, it's like everything flooded down. I don't know if you felt that or not. All right, oh, shoulders. Step to the top of your mat. All four corners of the feet press down. Hug your heels isometrically towards each other as you micro bend your knees, pressing the shins energetically forward. Inner thighs move back, tailbone down as you lengthen, not lock, through the legs, through the knees. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, bow forward. Oh. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, bow. Oh, inhale, halfway up. Exhale, bow. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, bow. Inhale, prepare, stretch the right leg back, straight leg lunge. So another thing, Allison, for neck and shoulders, upper back, they're extremely affected by the hips. So we'll move to, and your hips are pretty open, but we'll move to see if we can find some sensation for you in here to get them looser. From here, with the right fingertips on the floor or a block, pull away from the floor so there's less weight on your hands, more in your legs. The left thumb pulls into the outer left hip crease, wrapping the outer hip down, and press the shin forward as you pull the top of the thigh back. On your next exhale, twist. Inhale, lengthen and scissor the legs to strengthen them more. Inhale, twist, exhale, twist, and inhale, lengthen and strengthen. Oh. Stretch the front leg straight-ish, blocks on either side as you need. You can always step the back foot up and lift the heel as you need to, and bow deeply. Oh. Walk the hands to the outside of the front leg. And if you can, the hands can be on a block. If you can press the outside of the left shin into somewhere on the right arm, that gives you a little more, you feel that open in the hips even more deeply. And inhale your way back to center. Step back, downward facing dog. Oh man. And step your right foot forward, straight leg lunge. Settle in, steady up with a block or the floor. So the tendency, at least when I'm feeling very tamas, very slow and sluggish, is to drop all my weight into this hand. So work against that. Come up on the fingertips so you can't put much weight on it. And then as though you're pulling the weight out of the hand. Switcheroo here. The right hand then pulls the outer right hip back and wrap it down as you push the shin energetically forward. Pull away from the floor with the left hand. On the inhale, strengthen the legs, like pull them to the midline and lengthen the spine. Exhale, the ribs turn. Inhale, strengthen and lengthen. Oh. Exhale, twist. Notice with the twist, this right bum wants to pop out, so you keep pulling it back and in. And release. Straighten the front leg. You can hop the back leg up as you need to. Lift the heel for more height if you need it, or work it to the floor. Next, exhale, walk the hands to the outside of the front leg, wedging some part of the arm against some part of the leg and push. So then you can widen the inner thighs more, tailbone down to firm the low belly and the pelvic floor. And see if you can breathe here. Inhale, back to center. Downward facing dog. And lower all the way to the floor. To your belly. You get a blanket first. we'll do the lizard. So if you want to pad the knee, do that. All right, come up onto your forearms. Spread the fingers, plant the hands, hug an imaginary block between your elbows, and pull the forearms back. Now, right now, I went right into my low back and I felt it. So come down a little bit, reach the legs longer behind you, click all 10 toenails down on the floor and spread, hug an imaginary block between your feet, your shins, and then inner rotate the thighs up towards the ceiling. Tailbone lengthens like crazy, pulling the low belly up and in. Now reset the forearms, pull back and come into an upper back bend here. Pulling the shoulder blades, hugging them onto the back of the heart. Whoa. For lizard chameleon, I don't know, pull a leg up. I'm using my right leg right now. And then just pause here. I feel I'm very tight along these obliques and the QL, everything that's underneath there. So when I do this, I feel this more on the straight leg side, the left side, stretching the front of the body. You may not feel it at all, Allison. I don't know. You're pretty loose in the hips.
I feel it a little.
Yeah. We'll keep ratcheting it up a notch or two until you decide. I'm going to switch and change sides. You stay on the same side because I'm going to turn. I don't want to turn away from you. Okay. So we're here. Now perch up onto your, which leg is up for you? Your right or your left?
Leg.
Okay. Perch up onto your left hand, left forearm, not hand, and walk the right fingertips out. You can choose to either point the straight leg or flex it, tuck the toes. I tend to flex it. My kneecap doesn't love being smashed into the floor. So I just find I can get a little more power here. So you're opening towards the bent knee. Spin the ribs. The head stays pretty much, it opens a little bit, but don't let the head move too fast. So now you have to strengthen a lot, where it's as though you're almost pulling the right knee back towards your hip, and the straight leg is trying to pull towards the right leg. It's isometric. So it keeps the hip stable, and then you can stretch out. Another version of, I like to have a block here under my head. You can reach the left arm underneath you. The head's on a block, either facing towards the floor, or if you want to turn it to the side. And your right arm just does whatever it wants to do. Sometimes stretching it straight overhead is kind of nice. And this is sort of some version of the ski accident pose. And that stretches, again, the outside of the shoulder, as well as a little bit of hip action. And then inhale, come back up, this right leg still up, and now you'll twist towards the left side. So you're on your right forearm, perched up on your left fingertips, and you spin back towards the straight leg side. And here again, you can do the double whammy twist. Crawl your right arm, stretch your right arm straight. Then the forehead can be on the block. The left arm can be straight overhead or just supporting you. I keep a little weight on my elbow on the left elbow. Oh, and then that stretches the deltoid, the top of the shoulder, down the arm. And inhale your way back up. Take a dog or a child's pose to release anything going on in the back. Then change sides. Come onto your belly. Draw your left leg up. Straighten the right. And then just settle. Notice the difference on each side. And again, sometimes I can feel this right in my low back if I collapse too much. So lengthen the tailbone a lot. Pull the belly button energetically back towards the spine. And just pause here for a moment. Then the twist towards the bent leg. So walk your left fingertips out and perch up on either the left hand or the fingertips. The right forearm is pressing down and you're spinning towards the bent leg, your left leg. Pull the belly button up and in and lengthen more so my low back doesn't hurt. Then the upper body can twist more. If the legs are strong and you're working the legs a bit through the feet, at least the bent leg foot, your left foot is spread and flexed and engaged. I'm tucking the right toes, but that's up to you, whatever you want. And then release back to center. Stretch out, so, thread your right arm underneath you. So this one's a little bit easier for me. When I go across the other side, not so easy. Forehead can rest on a block, or you can turn your head towards your left leg. The left arm can do whatever you want it to do. You can experiment with some locations. Stretching it straight overhead is nice. You can just let it release and hold you. Well, this deltoid's not nearly as tight as the other side. Interesting. All right. Ugh. Inhale your way up. Need to call somebody to get me out of that one. All right. If I think that's a problem, let's go the other direction. So now you're on your left forearm and you're perching up on your right hand and turning away from the bent leg. You can stay here or thread the needle. So, the left arm stretches all the way under. Rest the head on blocks. I like it. I don't like it hanging over the shoulder. It's intense. Too much stretch on the neck. And then notice, oh my God. That reaches all the way down to the top for me on that right side, all the way down towards the top of the pelvis. Oh. And if you can, pull yourself out of it. Otherwise, call 911. Oh, and give it a last dog here. Stretch it out. Do a three-legged dog while we're here. Lift one leg high. Claw the floor. Hug the thumbs towards each other. Stabilize the shoulders. Open whatever leg you have lifted. Doggy at fire hydrant. And notice that the opposite shoulder collapses. So keep the opposite shoulder lifted as you open full male doggy at fire hydrant. And release. Come back to center. Side B. Lift. Stabilize the arms, the shoulders. Bend the knee. Lift and up and over. And the opposite shoulder will collapse. So lift that armpit more. Counter away from the tendency to drop and collapse. Oh, inhale, release. Come down to hands and knees. All right, so Allison, I'm gonna do this with you because a lot of times I can't do this pose or I don't do this pose, the hero pose. So either, I'm just gonna pad the knees because I'm a wimp, but you'll sit between the heels, and if that's not accessible, you can sit on a block or a little bit of a blanket. Now, sometimes it feels like I'm getting my calves stuck here. So you're not going to roll the calves out, but you can kind of iron the flesh with your knuckles back to get it sort of out of the way. Another way to relieve any pinch is to just lift the skin of the kneecap. You're lifting the knee up a smidge, but you can kind of feel, it feels like, I don't know if physiologically this is what's going on, but it feels like the skin is kind of pulling back, like it got stuck under there. How's this working for you?
Pretty good.
Oh, you're still getting set. Okay. So because you don't have knee issues. I mean, we all have knee issues after a certain age, but like you don't have problems with that I remember.
No, not really.
All right. I mean, I have 71-year-old knees, but I don't have chronic knee problems. I just have to be careful with them sometimes. So sit on what you need to in a nice manual inner rotation. And here's what I didn't tell you. I like to use blocks to go back, but you may be able to get back. So with the nice inner rotation, the sits bones kind of rolling, like you're trying to widen your sits bones. Then with the fingertips, you can just be back here. This is one version. And as the inner thighs are reaching towards the floor, tailbone lengthens, you can do a little upper back bend. Pull the shoulder blades on the back. And the more you walk your hands towards the midline, bend the elbows and hug the elbows to the midline. Whoa, that's showing up something in the left shoulder there. And then the back of the neck is long. You're neither trying to lift nor drop, but just keep it as neutral as possible. And release, come up. Take a twist while we're here. So turn to your right with the left hand to the outside of the left knee. The fingertips can be, if I'm up on a block, I like to reach the hands to a block. If you have an extra block, make you get up. And you twist from here. And inhale, untwist, and then exhale, twist to the second side. So the back hand, if it's up on spider fingers, that's where the block gives me some lift, and the elbow bends and pulls towards the back body, towards the midline. You get a nice shoulder opener as well. And inhale back to center. Now this one is when you come down by degrees. This is why having a block or a bolster behind you is nice. So some days I have to keep inner rotating the thighs and tailbone lengthens, start to stretch back. You might be able to lie all the way on the floor or over a blanket or a bolster. This is pretty much yeah, this is pretty much as far as I can get. I like to press my knuckles or my hands into the soles of the feet, especially right at the heels. If I push the heels, that helps me stretch through the knees. I feel like it helps me lift the hips a tiny, I mean, you're not trying to lift the hips, but you're lengthening the tailbone as much as possible. And then open up here, big stretch maybe across the quadriceps. The knees do get a little bit light, and that's okay. You don't want to force them, but reach them down, even if they're off the floor. Oh, inhale your way back up to center. I don't do that one often because so many people have pretty serious knee problems. And then come to sit with your both feet over to the right, and you're sitting all the way on your left bum. It's called sometimes called a mermaid pose. So the feet may touch in the back, they may not, but you're sitting on your bottom leg, your left foot rather. The left foot is under the right thigh. You got that?
Yes.
And then, so the right hip is up. It's off the floor pretty much, and the left bum is weighted. With the left hand, take it to the outside of the top of the right thigh, right knee, and begin to reach around. This is where I find a block helpful as well for the back hand. So the left hand can give me, it helps me get a little more lift, and a twist here. So as the ribs are moving towards the left, The low belly is moving back towards the right. Ooh, tailbone lengthens because this is another twisty semi back bend thing. A lot of them. Oh. And inhale your way back to center. Before changing to the other side, stretch the legs long. And bend the knees, a fairly good bend, flex the feet. You can hold behind the thighs, down towards the knees, pull the head of the arm bones back, and then pull the chest towards the knees. And as you stretch the soles of the feet, like you're trying to straighten the legs, your hands are resisting, like making it harder for the legs to straighten. You're pulling the back of the hamstrings, the back of the thighs up as you're pushing down. They may straighten, but you're doing it with resistance. And this is particularly important for you, Allison, because you're a little hyper flexible. And so straightening the legs is easy peasy for you. And so if you provide the resistance, you'll notice how you have to work a little harder and then maybe even get a stretch. I'm not even sure you feel much stretch when you straighten the legs. All right, we're going to the other side. Okay. So now you're sitting on the right bum. The left bum is off. The feet are off to the side, off to the left. The knees can be as far apart or as close together as they need. I like sort of a middle way there somewhere. Again, I like a block behind me. It just gives me a little more lift. The left hand comes to the outside and I like the back of the left hand presses into the top of the right knee. And that helps you both pull the shoulder back and spin the ribs around. So as the ribs are moving to the right, you can perch up on the right fingertips and pull the elbow, the right elbow back into the midline as the low belly is moving back to the left. So it does constrict your twist a bit. If I let this come all the way up, I could twist a lot, but you also run the danger of going into the sacrum. And we have enough problems there, so let's not make more. Oh, this side's so much tighter. Side body, breathe into it. With each inhale, you lengthen and strengthen. Exhale, twist. Whew. Yowzer. Inhale, straighten the legs. You can sit up on a blanket or not, you don't need it, but pull the buttocks flesh out as you straighten again. The legs are, feet are parallel, knees are even with the ankles, so they're not rolled in, they're going straight up and kind of try to push them apart. And actually, Allison, take a block, and it can be the middle way, probably not the narrow way, but the middle way or the wider, and squeeze it either between your feet or your shins, same thing, and hug that block like there's no tomorrow. Baby toe side coming back. Knees are bent, your hands are pulling, lifting the thighs up, and you're pulling out. That gives you a little inner rotation there in the thighs, but resist, don't let the thighs come down, but then the soles of the feet are pushing in, squeeze the block. You can tilt from the hips as far forward as you want to. Oh, show this from the side. So I'm pulling up, tilting forward and resisting. I might not ever go to straight. Don't lose the squeeze of the block. That makes it super harder. Super harder. The English teacher in me just rolled over. Oh, and release. Oh. Bend the knees. Place the hands behind you, fingers pointing towards your hips. Press into the feet. Inner thighs move towards the feet as the tailbone lengthens. Keep that, lengthen up through the spine. Pull the head of the arm bones back. Hug the shoulder blades onto the back As you bend your elbows slightly, hug them gently to the midline, and then lift up in reverse table. Again, big stretch for me across the shoulders and down the arms. And you lift the hips as high as you need to, not to push them up, but just until you feel it. And then the head sometimes gets awkward. If we thrust it forward, we're flattening the back of the neck. If I drop it, I'm pinching it. So I just want it somewhere in between. And sometimes I have to move it a little bit because the muscles start to get too tight. Ah, and release. That feels good. All right, let's do the supported fish. I love this one, especially if I'm planning to spend the day either hunched over something, which is usually what happens. I can't say I'm being that productive at work, but I sure am spending more time looking at movies. I always think of you when I'm doing puzzles. I do puzzles with my granddaughter, and your pictures of your puzzles that you post online. I love jigsaw puzzles.
Me too.
What are you working on now?
It's a collage of just movies over the past 20, 30 years.
Oh my God. There's this one, I should give it to you actually, that I got for the granddaughters, but it's too hard for me. It's a circle and it's a photograph of crayons, but the problem is it's so fuzzy, you know, the resolution of the photograph. It's hard, it is really hard. And also the shape of the pieces are so irregular. Like some puzzles, there's like 3 or 4 different shapes of pieces, right? Well,
Yeah.
this one is like some crazy person having an incident was cutting them because you can't tell what's an edge piece.
Maybe that's just designed to drive you crazy.
It did. And so Arden and I, we managed to get the edge put together finally. Oh no, the round one is like a ocean theme. The square one with the crayons had problems because the edge pieces didn't always, like usually an edge piece is a like straight piece, but this would come down to where it'd have sort of like a, what am I thinking, a New Hampshire, or, you know, what are those states that have a little skinny thing to the water?
Yeah.
You know, a little tail. It's like that would be an edge piece. Drive me nuts.
Oh, that would take forever.
We finally said, okay, this is supposed to be our leisure time.
Yeah, I like them challenging, but not enough to where I want to throw the puzzle.
Absolutely. And then if you want to, if it feels good, you can turn the head block to be the same height as your under your back block, and that gives you a little more opening. Knees can be bent or go long. If they go straight, work them so they're not flopping. The back of the thighs are pressing, and particularly the inner back of the thighs are pressing towards or on the floor. Oh, I can tell I worked that because it's when it's easy for me to get the back of my thighs to the floor, it means I moved something around. Some days I cannot do that. Let me breathe here. And you can stay here for final relaxation. Otherwise, we'll stay here about 2.5 more minutes. And then you can lie flat or keep this the whole way. So if you want to stay here for the next 5 minutes, do so. Otherwise, transition to regular Shavasana. Begin to deepen your breath, stretching, moving, yawning. And gradually roll to your side. Oh. Inhale your way up to a seated position and sit well. Settle in and let the effect of the practice wash over you. Draw your palms together in front of the heart center. Namaste.